On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 took off like thousands of other flights. Everything seemed completely normal. Its destination was Beijing. A routine international flight that should have taken just under 6 hours. The weather was calm. The aircraft was operating normally. Nothing suggested anything unusual was about to happen. Air traffic controllers tracked the aircraft just like every other flight. Everything was exactly as expected. Then, something unexpected happened. Radio communication suddenly stopped. Soon after, the aircraft disappeared from civilian radar. It simply wasn't there anymore. But disappearing from radar doesn't mean a plane has vanished. Sometimes, it simply flies beyond what radar can see. Most people imagine radar can see everything. It can't. Ground radar has limits. Once MH370 left radar coverage, tracking became far more difficult. The mystery was only beginning. Imagine trying to find one airplane inside an ocean, covering millions of square kilometers. That was the challenge. Even though the aircraft stopped responding, it didn't simply fall out of the sky. Something continued happening. Investigators soon realized there was a gap between what they knew and what actually happened. Imagine solving a giant puzzle with most of the pieces completely missing. That was the investigation. Civilian radar wasn't the only system watching the skies. Military radar captured something unexpected. Instead of continuing toward Beijing, the aircraft appeared to turn back. That changed everything. The new radar information suggested the airplane had changed course. But no one knew why. Every new clue created even more questions. Where was it going? And who was controlling it? After that, the aircraft entered one of the most remote parts of the world. Finding it became much harder. People often assume the entire planet is under constant surveillance. In reality, large parts of the ocean are not. But although radar had lost the aircraft, something else was still listening. A satellite high above Earth. Even after the aircraft disappeared from radar, it hadn't gone completely silent. It was still communicating with a satellite. These weren't phone calls or GPS signals. They were tiny, automatic check-ins. Think of it like someone saying, "I'm still here." Every once in a while, the aircraft answered automatically. These automatic signals continued for several hours. Each one became another clue. Investigators realized these tiny signals might reveal where the aircraft had gone. But there was one problem. The satellite couldn't tell the exact location. Instead, it could only say the aircraft was somewhere along a giant arc. Imagine someone telling you your lost keys are somewhere along an entire highway. That's much harder than knowing the exact address. That single arc crossed thousands of kilometers. Most of it passed over the open ocean. The search now had a direction. But it was still like searching for one tiny needle inside an endless ocean. Investigators finally had their biggest clue. But it wasn't a location. It was only a possibility. The search area wasn't a small circle. It stretched for thousands of kilometers. Countries around the world joined the search. Ships, aircraft, and experts worked together. Searching wasn't random. Every ship followed carefully planned routes. Imagine dropping a coin into the ocean and being asked to find it again. Now imagine the coin is a giant airplane. The challenge wasn't just finding the right place. It was also finding the right depth. To search beneath the waves, teams relied on powerful sonar. It could map the ocean floor. Most people imagine the ocean floor is flat. It isn't. It's filled with mountains, cliffs, and deep valleys. An aircraft could be hidden inside terrain that makes searching far more difficult. Even advanced technology has limits. By now, investigators understood this wasn't simply a missing airplane. It had become one of the most difficult underwater searches in history. The search was unlike anything the aviation world had ever attempted. Instead of searching everywhere at once, teams divided the ocean into carefully planned sections. Powerful sonar was pulled through the water, slowly scanning the ocean floor. Sonar works by sending sound waves to the seabed and measuring their echoes. Every unusual shape had to be checked. Most turned out to be natural formations. When sonar found something interesting, underwater robots were sent for a closer look. These robots could travel where humans could never safely go. Again and again, promising discoveries turned out not to be the missing aircraft. Even after months, only part of the search area had been examined. There was still an enormous amount left to explore. The deeper scientists searched, the more they realized the biggest obstacle wasn't technology. It was the sheer size of the ocean. Most people picture the ocean as a giant pool. But beneath the surface, it becomes an entirely different world. As you descend, sunlight disappears. The deeper you go, the darker the ocean becomes. Far below, the ocean floor is anything but flat. It has mountains, canyons, and steep cliffs. If an aircraft comes to rest inside one of these valleys, finding it becomes much harder. Even powerful sonar can't always see around every obstacle. Some places remain hidden. That's why engineers deploy autonomous underwater vehicles. They can explore places ships cannot. These robots don't just search. They also create maps of the ocean floor as they travel. Surprisingly, we know far more about the surface of the moon than parts of our own ocean floor. Every new scan covered only a tiny fraction of the enormous search area. Progress was measured kilometer by kilometer. But even if the aircraft was found, that wouldn't be the end of the mystery. The ocean itself kept moving. Even after something enters the ocean, its journey isn't over. The sea never stops moving. Ocean currents can carry floating objects for thousands of kilometers. Sometimes 4 months or even years. This means finding debris doesn't automatically reveal where it started. The ocean changes everything. Scientists tried to work backwards. If debris floated here, where could it have come from? On land, tracking an object can be straightforward. In the ocean, currents make every path far more complicated. The longer something remains at sea, the harder it becomes to trace its original location. Finding floating debris and locating the aircraft itself are two very different challenges. Every discovery answered one question. But it also created new ones. Thousands of people worked together. Pilots, engineers, oceanographers, scientists, all searching for the same answer. After years of searching, the mystery remained. Not because people stopped looking, but because our planet is far larger than most of us imagine. After years of investigation, scientists had gathered thousands of clues. Yet, one crucial piece was still missing. Many questions have partial answers. But without the aircraft itself, some questions may never be answered. Science can explain many parts of the journey, but not every moment of the story. Finding MH370 was never just one problem. It required aviation, space technology, oceanography, and engineering working together. The greatest obstacle wasn't a lack of effort. It was the sheer scale of the deep ocean. This mystery reminds us how much of our own planet remains unexplored. The search has always been guided by evidence, not speculation. Every new clue must be tested carefully. Sometimes science doesn't give us immediate answers. Sometimes it teaches us how difficult the question really is. More than a decade later, MH370 remains one of aviation's greatest mysteries. Not because people stopped searching, but because nature is incredibly vast. The story of MH370 isn't just about a missing airplane. It's a reminder that even today, our world still holds extraordinary mysteries. And science keeps searching, one clue at a time.